I can get better results for somebody in their health, in their fitness, all these training, if they only train 4 to 5 days than 6 to 7.
Juanita Sanger is a peak performance coach, and her life passion has been helping people achieve results they never thought possible in life, sport, and business. As a nutrition coach, personal trainer, sports coach, speaker, educator, and the owner of a fitness and wellness studio, Wanita has impacted thousands of lives over the last 25 years. She gives people the motivation and healthy rituals that can elevate work performance and make people unstoppable in all areas of life.
If I gave you a car or you bought a new car, let's say a high performance, a Ferrari, for example, I can guarantee you one of the first things you'd probably say to me is, what sort of fuel should I put in it? Because you expect to put in a high performing fuel so that it runs really, really well. So that's what we need to think of our bodies and our minds like. That protein for me is like one of the most important things. If men do a 2-day fast, their growth hormone actually can go up by 2,000%.
Wow, that's amazing. Welcome back to the show. Today we have an amazing guest with us. Her name is Juanita Sanger, and she is essentially a performance coach, but she's also a nutritionist. She happens to be my personal trainer as well, for full disclosure. Over the last 25 years, she's changed the lives of thousands of people, and her focus has been in helping people achieve results in life, in sports, and also in business. She's a speaker, and she's also an owner of her own fitness wellness studio. Now, part of the reason why I got Wanita on here is that she is an expert, especially when it comes to peak performance. And today we're just going to be discussing that in terms of how she sees peak performance in the individuals that she helps. Now, welcome to the show, Wanita. How are you?
Yeah, thanks, Gan. Thank you for having me on. This is a bit different, me on the other side.
I know. So half the time you're abusing me. And this time I get to, in a good way,
I'm encouraging you.
So Wanita, the first thing I wanted to start off with was more along the lines of, you've obviously been doing this for many years, and you've been working with, executives and also very busy people. What do you feel has been sort of the biggest hurdle that you find people have when it comes to getting healthy or even aiming for peak performance? Let's start with getting healthy first.
Yeah, well, probably all fits together. I love working with busy people because they're really highly motivated. And often their biggest problem is sustaining the high energy that they want to achieve the things that they want to achieve. And also underestimating their food and their unhealthy choices that they might be making are actually contributing to stress levels, which in fact contributes to fatigue and then other health issues. So it's a whole frame of different things that they might be doing, which sometimes feels like they're getting the quick fix, but often it works against them. So they're busy working on their business or maybe on their next goal, and they forget to treat their body and their mind like a high-performing athlete. And so that's what I like to teach people. So too many of these business people or high-performing people, they have the afternoon slump, that energy slump. They get a bit sluggish maybe after lunch, maybe gut issues are a problem. Your mental clarity and their focus mightn't be sustained all day. Even after a night's sleep, they can still wake up feeling tired. And often I'll find, under lots of stress, they might be carrying weight around their midsection, eating healthy, maybe doing some of the right things, but just not able to get rid of that, what I call the toxic fat, which can be contributed from stress. So just really underestimating just how nutrition and movement can contribute to a more productive day, and really understanding it's paramount if you want to succeed in your business or in life in general.
Yeah, and obviously that carrying a bit of weight on the gut, I think that's a big one that usually affects people, especially the busier they get, just have less time to do things. In your experience with when it comes down to nutrition, you've probably seen all the different fads that have come and gone. How do you feel about the direction of where we're going in terms of nutrition and in terms of trying to get into that state of peak performance?
I think people go for the quick fix. So they're going for the sugars to give them that quick energy boost, going for the caffeine to get the alertness, get that mental focus. People are going to alcohol more than ever to reduce stress. So they feel like it's at the end of the day something that's going to bring them down from the stress, when we know, in fact, even though it feels like that, it's putting your body under more stress. But it really is just the quick fix. And there's just so much contradicting advice with regard to the diets that you should be on, and keto and paleo and all these different kinds of things. So people are looking for the next best thing and not really understanding that it's right in front of them what they need to have. You don't need to look for the next best thing. We just need to understand the impact of the unhealthy choices and start really understanding some of the cleaner foods that we can put into our diet that can have a really significant effect on energy levels, and also their mental alertness and motivation, and even combating things like anxiety and depression.
So would you say that when it comes down to nutrition, it's a bit of experimenting to work out what works for each individual?
Not for me. I follow some general principles. And when you think of your brain, for example, your brain is always on. It's taking care of your thoughts, it's your movement, it's your breathing, your senses. So it's working really hard 24/7, even when you're asleep. So that means we need to fuel it well so that it can work efficiently, and simply by putting in foods that are nutritionally depleted. So often things we find in our supermarket, things that come in boxes, things that are quick and easy, they're high energy. They're not contributing to our brain's functioning. So I like to think of it as, if I gave you a car, or you bought a new car, let's say a high performance, a Ferrari, for example, I can guarantee you one of the first things you'd probably say to me is, what sort of fuel should I put in it? Because you expect to put in a high performing fuel so that it runs really, really well. So that's what we need to think of our bodies and our minds like, that we need to be putting in high performance food rather than our processed foods and our, all the things I've mentioned, like your sugar. It can damage it damages our brain. A lot of the foods that people are running to are causing high inflammation in the body. So if there's inflammation, there's more inflammation around the brain. Other than the really serious things that can result in things like strokes and heart attacks, even just your daily, your focus, your motivation, just the way you respond to things. You might be quick and angry all the time. You're quick to be angry rather than feeling really calm. And that can be just the effect of inflammation on the brain. So, your mood and it contributes to depression. Our gut is really linked to our brain. So what we're putting into our gut, serotonin is a neurotransmitter that helps us regulate our sleep and our mood and our appetite. And so 95% of that serotonin is produced in our gastrointestinal tract. So you put in foods that are causing inflammation, or put in, the foods that aren't good for us, the not so clean foods, then we're not getting that hit of serotonin either. It comes back to, there's lots and lots of studies done on traditional diets like the Mediterranean diet and Japanese diets, and then comparing them to our Western diets. And they've shown that the risk of depression reduces in 25, even up to 35% in those people that eat those particular diets. And those foods that they're going to are less processed. So they're high in vegetables, they're high in fruits, they're unprocessed. They've got their good, healthy grains in there, a modest amount of lean meats and dairy, but definitely just not as high processed foods.
Yeah, sure. But I think one thing that sort of comes up sometimes is the fact that there's some individuals that no matter what they eat, they seem to be in the best shape. What would you allude is the cause of that? They might be inflamed internally. Maybe they might have a lot of brain fog as well. But there's some people, nothing faces them. What do you reckon what's the secret for them?
Look, some people are just lucky, but you don't know what's often going on the inside. So the skinny fat people, you look skinny, but they can have really fatty organs.
That's true.
Often, gut issues. I was one of those people. I was a person that ate reasonably well, but had loads of gut issues, lots of health problems, but I was running on
Yeah.
adrenaline, so
Yeah.
then you're causing that inflammation in your body. So, two big things I like to help people with, or the first things I even tell people to look at, hydration. So are you getting enough water? And that's amazing how even adding some extra water can get rid of a few of these kilos. Our body operates on a lot of water. So dehydration will cause fatigue. It'll cause the mental fogginess. You're more likely to put on weight if you're dehydrated. So for someone looking at increasing their hydration, for every 25 to 30 kilos of body weight, you should be drinking a litre of water. So a lot of people kind of get, oh, wow, that's a lot. But you can be eating your water, so lots more fruits and veggies.
Correct.
You can put, people don't like water, things like herbal teas are good, or infusing your water. But the other thing I really encourage people to follow is protein pacing. So basically having protein every 3 to 4 hours, and that will help speed up your metabolism. So whether some people are just really lucky, it can be the case, but sometimes it's looking in deeper. What are they doing? Maybe they're eating more regularly throughout the day. Maybe they're having smaller meals. Maybe they're hydrating better. Maybe they're dealing with their stress better in their body. Because if you're not dealing with stress, your hormones just play havoc. So, it's a lot more to it than when sometimes someone looks thin. Often they're doing some better things than maybe someone who isn't. But it can be just not dealing with stress. Sometimes it's not to do with your food or your exercise. It can be the stress that's going on in the body. So whether that's food you're putting in,
That's quite interesting. You mentioned a liter for every 30 kilos. So someone who weighed about, let's say 90 kilos would have about 3 liters of water a day.
Yeah, 3 to 4. So every 25 to 30.
Wow. Yeah.
So, if you're not even close to that, work your way up. People will say to me, I'm going to the toilet all the time, but your body will get used to it. But really important to stay hydrated. But, it comes back to that peak performance. People will get more tired if they're dehydrated. And if you are thirsty,
you're right.
You're already dehydrated.
And how do you feel about, there's a lot of companies out there, and there's a lot of talk about electrolytes and adding electrolytes to the water. Do you think for the masses out there, and also for people who are sort of aiming to get to the top, do you reckon that makes a huge difference?
I can. I don't agree with a lot of the sports drinks. They're full of sugar, so won't name any brands, but loads and loads of sugar. So they will cause dehydration. They'll cause all the things I said before, with inflammation in the body, and you get that quick boost of energy and then have a really big crash. So not hydrates like that. You can buy high quality. Just the hydrates, your potassium and sodium. So your body will only absorb a certain amount of water. So, if you're sweating more, that's a way to actually enable your body to take in more water as well. So, they can serve their purpose, but you just got to be careful which ones you pick.
So we sort of have an idea that, obviously inflammation is caused by some of the poor choices we're making with food. Hydration is a big factor out there. And you mentioned protein pacing as well, which having multiple times, eating multiple times a day rather than sort of just forcing it. What about in terms of, I like to do this section, which is sort of walking the talk. So what do you do for your health as taking care of yourself and in all aspects of your life? How do you take care of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mentioned before, I was the adrenaline junkie. So I was the high-performing business person who wanted more from my day. And so for as much as I do all the things that I tell everybody to do, there's times when I didn't. And so because of that, my immunity was low. I was getting sick all the time. I suffered headaches, gut issues, and a range of other problems. Even just my joints ached more than ever. So I was starting to look at food a little bit differently with regard to how I could, I suppose, follow a protocol for myself. And that's probably what I teach people now. And so I always talk about it as in fuel, move, and pause. So how am I going to fuel my body? So one of the big things, just like I said at the beginning with regard to an athlete, is planning what I eat. So really, like you plan your day, your business, whatever you're doing, really looking at your week and thinking, okay, I need plenty of highly nutritious foods, fruit and vegetables, your complex carbs, and getting that protein pacing because I want my energy to sustain throughout the day. So planning is so important because, when you don't plan, it doesn't go to plan, and you end up picking up things that you don't want to really eat, but you just do them for that quick fix. So for me, that's really important in that fueling, obviously hydration, and I've mentioned the importance of that. I also incorporate adaptogenic herbs. So I have a herbal mix of herbs that have been used in Chinese medicine for thousands of years, and they basically just help with cortisol because basically when we just day-to-day stress, your cortisol levels go high and they come back down and they go high and they come back down. And every time they go high, it's that fight or flight response. Every time they go high and then they drop low, you create more fatigue. So adaptogenic herbs have been found to basically keep a more kind of even flow of that cortisol so you don't drop as low. So that's really important for me.
Do you take this in the morning or at
I do.
the end of the day?
In the morning, sometimes later in the day, if I'm also having a full-on overwhelmed kind of day, I will have extra dose of them. So that's my main things when I'm thinking about fueling. Lots of other things, but at keeping it simple, that's kind of my day. But planning is so important in that fuel. So I'm fueling my engine, fueling my brain, getting my
So would you
energy
do
up.
this like at the beginning of the week, like on a Sunday?
Yes.
Or
Yeah, definitely before my week gets busy. So sit down. I even do my online shopping so that it all comes. I know what I'm going to be having for the week. I even say sometimes to clients, put together a lunchbox like you would with kids. So you've got your food organised for the day. So that's my food. In movement,
So sorry to interrupt you, Wanita, but what about your protein pacing? Do you do that as well?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I will have protein every 3 to 4 hours. I'm on my feet a lot of days, all day. And so my energy can drop really quickly if I don't have that protein throughout the day. So I like to think of protein as giving you the long-lasting energy. So it's, you can have your carbs and it'll give you energy, but you'll find that you won't go for your sugar hits. Your energy doesn't drop as quickly. Protein's really good for your mental focus. So, yeah, definitely. That's one of my biggest things I do. So that protein pacing and hydration is so important for me.
So what would be an example of sort of your protein that you're taking?
Well, I do have a pretty high quality protein shake that I'll have once or twice a day. But I'm big on picking a good quality one. It's got to be cold pressed, so it's not heated, grass-fed, whey protein, no hormones and antibiotics. I don't want anything like that in my body. It might be as simple as eggs. I might have some chicken and some salad, turkey, just some lean meat throughout the day for me. So that's how I get my protein in.
Oh, great. I think it sort of makes sense it'll be good for people to sort of hear this because, I mean, oftentimes everyone's trying to work out, most people know what's healthy, but sometimes they have that decision of like, that actually tastes a lot better, but might not be as healthy for me. So it's good that you broke that down for us so we have an idea. So the next one would be move. I interrupted you there.
No, that's all right. That's fine. So movement for me is really important. We know that moving creates energy in the body, and there's been so many studies that show that it decreases anxiety and just gives you that better mental focus for getting through the day. So I make sure that my day has got movement in it. Now, I'm lucky. I've got a job where I'm on my feet a lot, but there's days I'm sitting at a computer. So it doesn't have to be big blocks of exercise, and this is where I try and encourage people as well, even just to set an alarm on your phone to make sure you get up every hour. So I like to think of it as also the incidental movement. Where can I put a bit of movement into my day that it's not kind of planned going to the gym movement? It might be taking the stairs. It might be doing some squats here or there, just stretching, even getting out of my chair to move. So movement is really important. I find your anxiety levels, when you've got that overwhelmed kind of feeling, it's amazing how there was actually a Harvard University study done that showed that if you stood up and put your hands on your hips for 2 minutes, your cortisol levels decrease by 40%. So even
Wow.
just to stand and put your hands on your hips. Then you think about, where can I move? So if I'm on a phone call and I don't have to be on a computer, I'm moving. I don't stand still or I sit still. So that's my day. I just add in little bits of movement. And one of the things I always encourage people to recognise is it doesn't have to be big blocks of exercise. Like it could be 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there, and it all adds up. So that's my actual incidental kind of movement. And then I'll add 3 sessions of resistance training, so some weight training a week. And then also cardio. So it's where you get your huff and puff. So not just going for a walk, which feels good, and it is good for you, but it's really important to get the heart rate up. So that little interval. So it might be hitting a hill or some stairs, or just going a little run. If you're walking, take a little run from letterbox to letterbox or to house. Or It's really important. That's shown to have many more benefits than just walking just an hour. Do 30 minutes of that where you really put your heart under pressure. It has a greater benefit for your health and for your mind. You feel good as well. Sends off all the endorphins.
Is there any concern for people in the past, I think what I used to do is just, the whole idea was just smash it out and just go as hard as I can in terms of running, for example. Should there be any precaution on, because there's a lot of studies out there now saying that you don't actually have to go to zone 5 where you're hitting at peak all the time. You can probably get away with zone 2, which a lot of people talk about. How do you feel about that, for example, for cardio?
Yeah, totally agree. And it comes down to, just what I mentioned before. You can get greater benefits from doing your 30 minutes and just adding intervals. So get the heart rate up, bring it back down, heart rate up, bring it back down. I'm big for that. I'm big for rest as well, where, I'll have people that will train 7 days a week and think they're giving their body great, amazing benefits from doing that when your body needs a rest. Come back to that car I was talking about earlier. You wouldn't run the Ferrari 24/7, so treat your body the same way. So let it rest, let it repair, which is kind of like my third thing that I concentrate on, which is pausing. So giving my body that rest, working on my sleep routine, breathing, and I incorporate fasting as well.
Interesting you mentioned, I'm not going to let you go with the fasting part, because that's currently a very big part of a lot of people's lives. And I think there's some debate about the fact that just missing breakfast doesn't make you special, because people kind of feel that I'm intermittent fasting because I'm only having lunch and dinner. And I definitely was in that camp, to be honest. But what are your thoughts about fasting, especially intermittent fasting?
Well, I've done intermittent fasting for as long as I can remember. So it feels like to a lot of people it's a real fad thing. But,
Yes.
I've seen the benefits for athletes I train, for people, even people who've been unwell, and how it's helped them to repair, stress in the body, losing weight. So intermittent fasting, you can do it in a range of different ways, but it actually helps reduce cortisol in the body. So, and it gives your body goes through a process of autophagy. So the longer you can fast, it goes through autophagy, and basically it's a cleanup of the old cells in your body. So it's just giving your body a chance to rest and repair, which will help with things like immunity. So there's more and more studies out there that are occurring at the moment with regard to illnesses and diseases and how intermittent fasting can help with that. So I help people do intermittent fasting maybe a little bit differently to maybe what they're used to, like you said, where they just miss breakfast. Because the problem with that is often people miss breakfast and then really make up for it and eat
that's
hell of
true.
a lot of food throughout the day, or they've had a real sugar crash, what they think is a sugar crash, their energy, and they just go to sugars or anything, the next best thing. So they'll eat till late at night and not have breakfast and think that's okay and wonder why, for example, they're not losing weight. So there's a much healthier way to do intermittent fasting.
Yeah, I find that I tend to get a craving, probably because I only have lunch and dinner. So between lunch and dinner, I get this massive craving at like 4:00 where, if I'm at work, I'm kind of looking at the fridge, and if I see chocolates, I desperately want to open it. So it's sort of, I have to fight myself from trying to open chocolates. Full disclosure, I have a thing with chocolates, like a lot of people. But I think obviously when you're fasting and you're not potentially not getting enough protein as well, I think the cravings for sugar are a lot higher.
Yeah, and that would be my question to you. What are you eating between lunch and dinner?
Yeah,
Because
that's
you're not
right.
following
Yeah.
the protein pacing. So, after 3 or 4 hours, you're going to start to feel that crash, and that's why you go to the sugars. So if you
Yes.
prepare, you'll have that protein snack mid-afternoon, and it can be as simple as a boiled egg or a couple of eggs,
Yeah.
a bit of chicken, throw in a bit of salad, and that's all you need, and then you're not going for the quick fix. And then, because the problem is people get to the end of the night and because they haven't even eaten enough calories, and I see this too, where, someone mightn't fuel their body well enough. So coming back to that athlete, they're making sure that they've got enough fuel to sustain whatever they're going to do. So if you're not having enough fuel, one, you're going to go to sugars. Late at night, you're going to be looking for extra food. And two, then it's harder to incorporate intermittent fasting because you're always hungry. If you do it correctly,
Yes.
you shouldn't get hungry. And hydration, keeping hydrated is a really important step in that as well, to stop with that feeling that you need food, because often we're dehydrated when we're hungry. Your body's actually craving water.
Well, another question that related to fasting that comes up is that there's always this concern if you're exercising hard, you're working hard. We're doing fasting. Some people do 24-hour fasting and 48-hour fasting. Would you be losing protein if you're still exercising quite hard? I think this is a question commonly comes up quite a bit.
So do you mean like muscle mass?
Yes.
There's a lot of research around how the body, particularly, say, for example, men doing a 2-day fast. Now, I use some of those botanical herbs that I was speaking about before that actually help people to last the distance, so they can last the fast. So they're having those as well as water. It doesn't take your body out of a fast. And it's shown that if men do a 2-day fast, their growth hormone actually can go up by 2,000%.
Wow, that's
So,
amazing.
women, it's about 12 to 1,300. So even half of that, you're still getting a real big increase in growth hormone. So then you come out of your fast, you fuel your body really well. The growth hormone is still sitting quite high, the next day and 2 days after that fast. And that's where you go really hard at the gym, because you're going to see real changes in your body because your growth hormone's higher. So, So no, against that, no. It doesn't break down muscle if you do it correctly. And you've got to fuel your body well out of it. So you've got to fuel your body well into it, fuel your body well out of it. There's no use going into a fast depleted. You've got to go through all the things that I spoke about before, your protein pacing, your meal prep's really important, and then the same coming out of it on the other side. So your first meal that you have needs to have around 20 to 40 grams of protein in it. To start fueling your body back again. So, that first meal out of a fast is really, really important. So when people fast overnight or go to lunchtime and then they're just sitting to a salad or a muffin and a coffee, that you're not going to get the benefits of the fasting that you should. So it's around the food as well as the fasting.
It sounds a little bit like the 5-2 diet, where you're almost calorie restricting yourself, but you're saying completely no food for 2 days.
Yeah. There's actually some studies done comparing the difference, and the results are superior doing like even just a single day fast compared to a week compared to doing 5-2 diet. Because the problem is the 5 days people just eat whatever they want. The 2 other days, they restrict their calories, but they may restrict also their protein. So protein for me is like one of the most important things. And it's when I speak to athletes, they're never eating enough. When I speak to women who are having hormonal issues, people who are tired, like it's almost everyone I speak to is not eating enough protein. So it's one of the first things we look at to try and combat whatever the issues are, or even to just give them more energy for their day.
And then the other thing that I was just thinking about while we were talking about this is that there's often the thing that comes up about stubborn belly fat, right? Whether it's men or women. What are your thoughts about that, especially if someone is exercising frequently, they're eating well? Obviously, as a busy person, the stress levels is something that, we all have and they probably can't control as much. What would you suggest, or what are your recommendations?
Yeah, look, I mentioned it earlier, and that was that stress fat that you mentioned sitting around the organs. So, a couple of things I look at straight away. Yeah, obviously, food intake, and sometimes their food intake can be really good. Comes back to adding that extra bit of protein. It might be that if you're not getting that, your hormones can be playing havoc, so that can affect your weight loss. So we look at that. Look at their exercise. Some people over exercise, then there's stress. There's that stress again. So hanging on to that stress fat in that midsection because their body is just toxic. So we look at that. But the other thing is that fasting element to it. So just giving your body a chance to heal. So when we do the fasting, your cortisol will drop. And that can be as simple as that. And people will come away from me and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe in 24 hours, that stubborn little bit of belly fat that just won't go, just did. So what have I done differently? And, it can be it's given your body a chance to rest. Sometimes people aren't eating enough. So if your calorie count is too low for the load that you're giving your body, so it might be you're working hard all day, you're going to the gym at night, you're running, you're trying to achieve so much in your day. And like you mentioned before, a lunch and a dinner. And I would go, you're not eating enough. So that's, highly stressful for the body. And again, there's your toxic fat, there's your belly fat that's coming around that midsection to protect your organs from the toxicity in that your high cortisol than your body requires.
You mentioned over exercising. Well, what would you define as over exercising? 7 days a week would be obvious, but specifically what would be overworking?
Yes, 7 days a week. So I can get better results for somebody in their health, in their fitness, all their training, if they only train 4 to 5 days than 6 to 7. So it's really important. You can have a real high load couple of weeks, but then take a whole week off. So in your day, where are you resting? So where are you stopping? Where are you pausing? That was that third thing that I look at is where do I pause? Where do I stop my body so that it can have a rest and repair? So different for everybody because obviously if you're an athlete, you've got a load that you're expected to work towards, but it's also a deload as well. So, if you're working to increase muscle and you're at the gym all the time, then you'd have a week off, or you might have a week where you're doing 2 days instead of 5 days, but definitely not be training 7 days a week.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I think 3 days of resistance training and then potentially maybe a day or two of cardio.
Yeah, look, ideally you're doing 30 minutes of cardio a day, that huff and puff. So we really want to be able to try and get, every day if you can, or at least 5 days of cardio. And, I said 30 minutes, but if it means 15 and 15 in the morning, 15 at night, perfect. 3 days, I see a lot of people do cardio and not do the resistance training. So that's, your 3 days. It's really important to build muscle on those bones, get those bones stronger. It will help with metabolism. So it's really important to actually get resistance training, whether that be body resistance, whether that's using some weights. 3 times is really important. I mean, if you're training to do a marathon, for example, you're going to up your training. But the important thing is to gradually increase it. Obviously, not just jump in all in and go too hard too early. But even incorporating things like stretching, so important. Getting your sleep routine right is so important, so your body can repair from the training that you're putting, or the load you're putting it under.
It's interesting. I think the stretching that you mentioned, I've just incorporated that into my life, and it's made such a difference. The unfortunate bit is that it takes time, and so I feel for the 20 minutes that I spent stretching, I could have exercised and I could have just ticked that off my box that I'd done it for the day. But now on top of that, I've got to add exercise on top of it. So it makes it a little bit harder. But the benefits that I get from just feeling my body a lot more supple, it's huge.
And look, you can do it. You could get up 5 minutes earlier, 5 or 10 minutes earlier, set your alarm, do it by the side of your bed. Have your routine that you do your stretching then, because that's going to invigorate you. It's going to, you look at animals, they get up and they stretch, innately.
Yes.
So we should get up and stretch. It calms the mind. You don't just wake up and go straight to, on mode. You ease into your day, which can then again just keep you a little calmer, approaching all your tasks that you've got throughout the day. Throughout the day, if you're sitting at a desk or I'm guessing for you over in surgery, all those sort of things where you're loading muscles. I've seen more issues with people in necks and shoulders and things since we've been in lockdown the last couple of years, and now people are working from home. So stretching will just enable you to pull those shoulders back, have better posture, less neck pain, less headaches. And then at the end of the day, it's just a great way to calm the body, just calm the body and calm the mind. So taking another five minutes. So it doesn't have to be that 20, 30 minutes all at once. So spreading it out throughout the day, the benefits are huge in how you sleep, how you wake up, how you deal with stress, the aches and pains throughout the day, and just dealing with the stress throughout the day, stopping, breathing, taking a stretch calms the mind.
Yeah, certainly. Now, Wanita, you mentioned stress, and obviously everyone has their own stresses. Now, from your perspective, and you've been in the industry for such a long time, has anything happened in your life that has changed the way you see things for health, for yourself, your family, even the people you work with?
Yeah, probably before when I mentioned about when I got to a really low point in my own health, I had adrenal burnout. And I was really, really unhealthy. And then I had to really stop and think, gosh, what am I doing? I'm killing myself. I was teaching everybody else to do all these great things and I wasn't doing them. So one of the big ones for me was rest. Hydration is probably a really big one for me. I tell everybody to drink water and sometimes forget. So I sit here with my drink bottle and I drink water as much as I can. I have water with me all day long. The last couple of years have been a big change for me. I lost my mum just on 2 years ago. And I've actually just lost my brother a couple of months ago. And I look at, their lives, and stress played a huge part in their lives. My mum was in her 70s and still running a business, working crazy, ridiculous hours. And my brother was someone who probably didn't treat his body well and didn't eat well. And so, the consequences of that is dying in his 40s. And so, I looked at them and have analysed what they've done, and it's made me really analyse my own life. And I know I teach people about healthy eating and moving and pausing and resting, but it's a real realisation of how much you've got to live it. And sometimes you can be all talk and telling people how to do it, and you get lost in the busyness of life. So it's made me reanalyze some of the things I'm doing in my life.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your mom and your brother.
Thank you.
But I think that's the toughest thing. And I guess the message for the people listening or even seeing this would be, how can we prevent them from having to go through such a big event in their life, whether it be a health issue, and how can we change them rather than waiting for that period for them to actually get really sick before? What would be a message to them? Because it's usually when they hit that place where it's hard or they've just been given a diagnosis is when people want to change. Like, I always struggled with this even as a doctor. Like, how can we kind of be proactive and try to move our patients or clients towards health before they get there? What are some of your thoughts?
Yeah, look, and this is my battle all the time. One of my big things is talking about small, healthy rituals and how they have a compound effect. So it doesn't have to be, sorry, I've got my dog barking in the background. It doesn't have to be, huge, big changes. It's just the compound effect of really small, healthy rituals. So where I spoke before about getting up and stretching in the morning, 5 minutes, meal planning, adding a little bit more protein to your day, not thinking of health as being this big thing, a big diet, I haven't got time for it. It's just the little things. I often talk about it when someone puts on weight. It didn't just happen because they had one big meal. It was the compound effect of one cookie, the next cookie, and a big takeaway meal, and then over years and years and years you've been doing that. But if we look at healthy habits the same way, if we just do small little changes, the way we move, how can we move a little more? What are some things we could do with food? Just a couple of little changes, and you'll feel the difference. And one of the big things I try and encourage people to really recognize is to take the time away and have that self-awareness. So when you eat healthy, when you do something for your body, move it a different way, add in a bit more exercise, stop and calm that mind, breathing or stretching, how does it make you feel? Because if you actually recognize how it makes you feel, then in contrary to that, when you don't do that, how does it make you feel? So when we start really stopping and reflecting, I think it's when, I can all day long and you can all day long be telling people, do this, do that, do this. But, it's that same old analogy. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. But if we really understand and can feel the effects, you're more likely to contribute, or keep doing those behaviours, or undertaking those new healthy habits, because you recognize how they make you feel. So it's one of the biggest things when I get people to change something. We often will only change one or two things at a time, really small. Okay, let's add 2 days of exercise this week. We're going to walk and we're going to add some water to your week. So we're not changing big things all at once. Okay, at the end of the week, how did that make you feel? So if someone feels really tired, then I'll say, well, what did you eat yesterday? How did you sleep last night? Have you been moving today? So you think about your preparation, like your athlete. How did you prepare going into your next day? So if we're just doing small little changes, then you will recognize how they impact you. So yeah, that's kind of the big thing I try and teach people, probably more than all the healthy habits. How does it make you feel? So every choice you make, every extra cup of coffee you have, because the more caffeine we have in our body, the more it dehydrates us, the more it puts us under stress. You don't sleep as well if you have loads of caffeine. So let's cut those. Let's go to half of that, whatever that might be for you. Now, how does it make you feel? How was your alertness?
Yeah.
How did your energy be affected by that? So yeah, that's probably my biggest suggestion in trying to.
I think that's actually gold, because I think a lot of people generally do not think about how they feel. I don't think they're in check with their bodies. And so oftentimes, as you mentioned, when they're eating things that don't go so well for them, they might just sort of brush it aside, and then maybe 6 months or 3 months later, they feel sick all the time and they just don't understand where it started. And so I think that's great advice.
Yeah, so true. And it's amazing when you do start to reflect, and then you start adding healthy things in, and you go back to, let's say you're having that glass of wine every night, and then we've gone, okay, let's just try and have them on the weekends. People who tell me they've got loads of energy often then will go, oh, wow, actually I didn't have energy. I didn't even realize I didn't have energy. And, and then they realize it was the alcohol, because it becomes your norm.
Yes.
What you're doing your day to day, as you said, it just adds up, and you don't recognize the impact. When we take it away and introduce a new healthier habit, then suddenly you go, oh, actually, now I realize what it was doing to me. So, so if people can understand that, become more self-aware, they're more likely to continue doing that particular behavior or healthy habit.
Yes. Well, that was amazing, Juanita. Thank you so much for coming on the show and also talking about this, because I'm sure it'll benefit a lot of people. Now, for those who want to reach out to you or want to find out a bit more information, where can they find you and where should they go?
Yeah, best is probably jump on my website. So it's life-energy.com.au. Anyone looking to, a busy person looking for help there, you can go to Elevate Workplaces, and it's all about the different programs I run for high-performing professionals.
Okay, amazing. I'll leave the details of your website on the show notes as well. And until the next time, I'll catch you then.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on, Gan.